People with autism, how would you describe what autism feels like to someone who doesn't have it? Most of what everyone else has said, but I'll add this, feedback loop. Sometimes things just get stuck in your head. Not just songs or movies, but things you or someone else has said in conversation, which will then be repeated for no apparent reason. I catch myself saying the same things I've already said under my breath, but I'm not trying to understand the what or why of it. I just do it. I like very specific objects. I quickly develop really weird attachments that not even I can explain. In school, for example, I would always become attached to specific chairs in the auditorium, or in a classroom even. Any break from that order would throw me in a loop of anxiety that I could hardly escape from. I even remember where they were to this day: second row from stage, third seat from left aisle. No one I spoke to could comprehend why I cared. It feels like you're in a play and everyone has the script apart from you. Not my quote, but I saw it somewhere and I resonated with it so much. Being really sensitive and self-conscious around everything. Also having really good acting and mimicking skills in conversations 24/7, otherwise people think you're weird AF. Like everyone else is in on an inside joke that you don't know. And when you do know it, everyone thinks you don't, so they leave you out of it still. Imagine if human sensory had settings, and all of them were at maximum. If I could do that, it wouldn't have taken them 22 years to diagnose me. 26 male, athletic, successful career as a welder. Absolutely no idea how to socialize, and no desire to. Completely alone, no friends my age, especially girls. If I'm with more than 2 other people, I completely shut down, can't process all the information I'm taking in. If I'm lucky enough to get a date, there is never a second, and I don't understand why. I've never been mean to anyone in my life. I work by myself and then I come home and work on my fire truck, which I'm completely obsessed with. I go on vacation by myself, never anywhere with crowds, usually some remote fishing spot where I sit by myself all day. I'm the human definition of an island. Also should add huge anxiety issues, scared of planes, boats, elevators, falling asleep, it goes on. For me, it feels like I'm being forced to participate. I'm a society that actively works against me. Almost like being in a terrible play where everyone has a script but me, and I get blamed for it. To me, it's like being brought into a world where everyone else has a huge map and you don't. The autistic people are just wandering around, confused and lost. Some are able to ask for help, while others are unable to. I'd also describe it as being socially blind. You're unable to see people's real intentions, and you have to build walls around yourself to prevent being taken advantage of. You all take it for granted. After lockdown, the isolation ends for you. It won't for me. I'll be lonely always. For me, it feels like I'm standing in front of a bunch of good-looking bananas and I'm over here trying to fit in while looking like weirdly bent, bruised banana. I guess I feel like the odd one in the pack? Not understanding social cues is the worst, and masking is the most difficult thing to do to try to even fit in. Imagine you're an alien. And you're at school learning about humans, but you don't pay attention to classes and you cheat your exams. And now you're sent to Earth and have to fit in with humans. You don't understand the society or unspoken rules, and there's a lot of anxiety involved, and you have to try to pretend you're like the others. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's how autism feels for me. Like being among humans without having a clear idea about how they work. I am 28 years old and have no idea who I am. Because I've spent my entire life copying those around me so that I can figure out how to exist. I have a different mask for each person I run into. And I don't know if any of them are really me. First, I'd have to know what not having autism is like. Socially, like everyone was given a set of rules at the start, but you somehow missed the memo. You crave companionship, but your initiative is rarely reciprocated and instead mocked, and you have no idea why. Sensory-wise, sometimes your body is extra aware of everything happening around you in all senses, which can be really annoying. Rest of the time you are just picky about feelings that you are willing to tolerate. And emotion-wise, I personally experience them at low intensity, but also have a low threshold for when they become overwhelming. I am pretty high-functioning though. Not autistic, but when talking to autistic people I always try to be as factual and to the point as I can. I work in STEM, so that's quite a few people. Making jokes or puns won't go over well. Hoping they'll assume something won't go over well. Hoping they'll read my face and body language won't go over well. Having autism makes me feel useless and dumb even though I am high functioning. To me it feels like wanting a hug but not wanting to be touched. It's hard to explain and makes you feel so misunderstood. Skeptical smiley face. Noise hurts, social stuff makes you feel like an alien. Animals are better. You know how when you were in PE and everyone had to run laps, there was always that one kid in the back who was able to keep up with the group, but only by using literally everything they had in them? That's how I feel sometimes. I happen to be perfectly right on the line between autistic and normal. If I were any less autistic, I'd be normal, but if I were any less normal, I'd be autistic, if that makes sense. I've only ever met 2 other people like this, where they're autistic but really do seem almost 100% normal except for a few things. Autism is a spectrum, but I really feel like people like us in particular that are right on the line are pretty rare. Can we reverse this and ask, how would you describe what it feels like to not have autism to someone who does? It's kind of like when you drop something in the water, then when you reach in to get it, it's slightly further away than you thought because of depth perception. Interacting with others is like that, you almost get it right, but not quite. I find that it's a lot like being permanently a stranger in a strange land. The ways of the culture you're surrounded by don't make a lot of sense, you're expected to adhere to them all the time, and people judge you even when they know you're a stranger in a strange land who doesn't think the same way as everyone else. And then they get confused when you'd rather spend your time reading and writing instead of doing social things such as going to parties. Everything feels much more intense. If I'm happy, I'm really happy, I can't contain my excitement and I will talk way too loud. But if I'm stressed out because my routine changed, it is the worst. I need to keep my days structured or I just end up panicking. Well, let's say the world is not structured at all. Emotional. It's hard to describe, but it's hard when people assume you're stupid all the time. I feel like a child compared to people my age. I'm almost 19. If I didn't have autism, if I didn't have visual and hearing impairments, I'd be like everyone else. Skeptical smiley face. Everyone has done brilliantly touching on a lot of parts of it. But my biggest one is over-explaining stuff that clearly to others or myself after the fact doesn't need it, or not giving enough explanation, backstory for some things and getting super frustrated cause you then have to explain it and still don't fully or accurately explain it and confusing them and then getting upset at yourself cause you feel dumb. I've shown up to a dance class where everyone else already knows all the moves except me. I can try to ad-lib but it's gonna be pretty clear I'm not getting it. God, I hate small talk. Why do people always ask me how I'm doing? I just saw you yesterday, all I've done in that time is sleep and shower, why would anything change? Was it rude for not asking it back? Do they care? Does my reply sound forced? It is, but does it sound forced? Is this person going to like me less for how I respond to their niceties? It's like being born on another planet where everyone basically thinks and feels very much the opposite of you. They all dress and act and think differently from you, and yet they expect you to be exactly like them, even if you don't want to or have no idea how, or you'll be seen as weird or worse, be bullied and harassed. They are loud and love everything to be brightly lit and colored. Everything is just extreme. The fads and trends, the clothing, the social outings that leave you exhausted because you have to feign interest for several hours. Of course, it's okay for them not to like any of your interests and say they're weird or cringy. Constant, yet needless, panic. And also, getting extraordinarily annoyed when people say, well, everyone is slightly autistic when they find out you have it. Just fuck right off with that nonsense. It's hard to believe, but it's just like what a neurotypical person would feel like most of the time, besides the fact that everything sensory-wise is amplified. For example, loud music hurts my ears, and to someone else it could just be at a normal volume. However, for me it feels much louder and I'm more sensitive to the noise. There's also more to it, such as special interests, basically a huge obsession with something that interests us, and the fact that we feel like we stand out a lot in the world, but besides that, most of us appear to live normal lives. It's important to note that autism is a spectrum, so different people are affected differently, therefore everyone with autism will feel differently about it. Thanks for asking this question. Autism feels like being an outsider looking in. I don't understand why people behave the way they do. I can't grasp the hatred, disdain, or any feeling of extremism. I feel like an alien looking in. I feel like I'm watching mankind lose its sanity over trivial things. If you have ever smoked so much weed that you can no longer talk, in my opinion that's actually a very similar type of struggle to what we sometimes experience when trying to interact with other people. Either autistic people need to stop being so relatable or I need to get tested. Amplified emotions fucking suck when you also have depression, extreme interest in specific subjects playing music for me, confusion when around other people, sometimes you know you should be helping but don't know how, trouble wording thing properly as you can probably see, and many more things I can't remember. In conclusion, I fucking hate it. Only good thing it has done for me is that I'm a great musician. Not sure where I read this. Imagine you're in a room full of foreigners. They talk with their hands, do all kinds of weird gestures and you have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. One of them walks up to you and tries to have a conversation with you, and you can do nothing but react with absolute confusion, and you say, "I'm sorry, but I don't know what you mean." They look at you like you're stupid, and say, "Why not? Everyone knows what we're saying. What's wrong with you? Why don't you understand?" It's that way with social cues. We don't pick up on it automatically. We have to learn it, manually? As a kid, I would watch as much TV as possible because I was certain there must have been a show I was missing that taught you how to be a person, so yeah, kinda like the missing instruction manual analogy. I always felt a few steps behind everyone else. I am always the last to get a joke, if I even get it at all. Eye contact literally burns my soul. I get sweaty and nervous if I make eye contact. I used to make weird noises as a kid but taught myself how to beatbox, so I sorta learned how to mask it over time. I learned to mask lot, which is now making it hard as an adult to actually get a proper diagnosis now. Everyone is like Loki trying to trick me and I'm just out here trying to understand what the fuck is going on. Everything seems normal but people act like you're always doing something wrong. I sat down and spoke to my girlfriend about this before, as she's autistic and I wanted to understand a bit better how she feels in herself. She said the best way she can describe it is as the reaction you get to something that makes you want to shut everything out because it overwhelms you. Like nails on a chalkboard or a fork or knife cutting against a plate. Something that triggers your internal grating, as she called it. When someone changes plans that involve her, she's very routine-orientated, or someone explains a joke to her she didn't understand, that's what it feels like her. And she can feel that sensation for hours sometimes, unable to let it go because it keeps replaying. It's like living in a country where you don't know the language. After years of study you can learn what everyone is talking about and struggle your way through a conversation. But you know there will always be a lot that you just won't get, and the language barrier means that you will never really bond with anyone. I have no fucking clue. I was born this way and don't know anything else. It feels like a lifetime of gaslighting. From early childhood to late adulthood. If you can start to imagine yourself in such a situation, only then can you start understanding what it involves. What is it like to not have autism? How would you describe being normal to someone with autism? Edit, grammar. It's like being a Mac user back in the 90s. We had good hardware, good software, some great specialized stuff, but Windows users would only see how it was different, what it couldn't do, or didn't do the way they expected it to. I just say I'm retarded. It's lonely. Hannah Gadsby had a good one that resonated with me. You're either the only sober person in a room full of drunks or vice versa. For me myself, some things hit harder than others. Social interactions are hard but easily scripted. It's the unexpected things that throw me off. For example, I have a house and with it 2 parking spaces. It is clearly marked by house number. Someone parked their car there and I don't know who or why. Nor was it asked beforehand. It stresses me the fuck out. My entire weekend has been stress. Like when you're a nervous flyer and you're sitting at the gate before boarding. But the boarding call just doesn't come.